Okay, we ready to go?
Yes.
You there, Brian Herlick?
Yes, go.
We're ready?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome, my fellow councillors and city staff members. We have our CEO, Rob Philpott, with us tonight. We have our CFO, our Director of Finance, Kristen Dunsford, and Brian Harlick will be running the controls on our Zoom meeting here tonight. And all of our fellow councillors are present, and I believe as time goes on, their name will be printed underneath their photo on the screen. So welcome everybody to this April 20th, 2020 monthly meeting of members of City Council. So we'll call the meeting to order. And is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Snow and seconded by
Approved.
Councillor or Deputy Mayor McCollum. All in favor? Country nay. Thank you very much. Any conflicts of interest before we get going here? I do not hear any. So just before we start the meeting, we all heard and read and saw on the news about the terrible tragedy in Nova Scotia, our neighboring province. And it's just a very, very sad situation for the province of Nova Scotia and the people who live there. And so many lost their lives. And I hear it maybe around 20 or so. So anyway, before we start our meeting, I would ask members of council if we take a moment of silence, remembering those who lost their lives. Thank you. I talked with the mayor of Colchester, Mayor Blair, by text, and was talking with her office today, and she's very, very busy with phone calls and trying to deal with the situation, what happened in her county. And it was only this past week, the Atlantic Mayor's meeting was supposed to have been in Truro and hosted by Colchester and the town of Truro, Mayor Billy Mills in Truro and Mayor Blair from Colchester. So that got canceled about a month ago. Anyway, I also want to welcome today to our meeting the Journal Pioneer, Millicent McKay. Welcome, Millicent, to our Zoom meeting. And as time goes on, councillors will probably have some things to say and to mention as we go through each department. And we'll start the meeting. And is there a motion to approve the minutes for March the 16th, 2020, and the approval of the special council meeting on April 7, 2020? Moved by Councillor Adams and seconded by Councillor McFeely. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Country nay? Carried. Okay, we'll continue on. The correspondence, I will read that at our next meeting. There's a lot of letters and information, and this past month it's been interesting and difficult to deal with. As we all know, we're closed here at City Hall, but councillors are doing their best to process the city business. We have to follow the provincial guidelines of Dr. Morrison and the federal guidelines, and we're doing that. And that sometimes makes it difficult to process meetings, but having said that, we're doing the best we can and working through this new technology, the Zoom meetings. Some of us I guess all of us are getting onto it, but we'll get through it. And hopefully within a few weeks, things will start to level off. Did somebody want to mention something before we go to the financial services? If not, we'll continue on with the meeting. And Deputy Mayor Norman McCollum, you have a financial services report.
Yes, I do, Your Worship and members of council. The report was prepared by Director Kristen Dunsford, and I'm bringing it with respect to where we are in our fiscal year, or our budget for 2019-20. The report tonight, it does consist of an update on our preliminary financial results for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Our latest projection for the 2019-2020 fiscal year is showing a small surplus of $63,356. We are able to offset additional costs incurred, such as cleanup and restoration from post-tropical storm Dorian, and lower than expected revenue without adding to our long-term debt. We will present final operating and capital results once our year-end audit is complete and our 2019-20 statements are released this coming June. The 2021 budget was approved as of March 16th, 2020 at our council meeting. We are in the early stages of analyzing the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on city operations, and will continue to monitor for programs that are available to the municipalities. The following has been put in place for our residents to assist the utility customers who may require additional support at this time. And this has been put out in press releases as well. A $25 rebate will be processed on April utility bills for all customers within the municipal boundary. For those residents receiving electricity from Maritime Electric, this rebate will be included on your water and sewer bill for April. There will be no late payment charges that will be billed until further notice. As well, no disconnections of utility services for non-payment will be done until further notice. And finally, we encourage customers who are unable to pay their utility bills to contact City Hall number at 902-432-1230, and the department will develop a flexible payment arrangement with the resident, with the customer. And I'd like to just indicate to all members of council, in your packages, your financial information is there. If you do have any questions, please feel free to check with me or the CFO. They will be available as well, and CAO. And I'd like to just thank you for this opportunity to present our financial committee report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McColman. Any questions for the chair?
Yes, Your Worship.
Go ahead,
Just the last day or so, I found out through talking with our CAO, I was just looking into active transportation. As you recall, the provincial government have set aside some money that was going towards active transportation in communities across PEI. During our budget process, we had brought this to the table of the budget. In my understanding was that it was part of the budget. It was passed through the budget. I've since learned that it's nowhere to be found in any of the line items. It was a significant project that I think was very beneficial for our city as a whole. Active transportation obviously is something that is very important to the health of the overall community. So I don't know where that went or how it happened, but my opinion, or what I had thought, was that was in the budget. It was approved through the budget, but have since learned that it's nowhere to be found. So in theory, we're missing out on some 50-cent provincial dollars and so on moving forward if we don't move ahead with this project, which would be unfortunate.
What city budget part was it in? Was it municipal services or finance?
I don't know. I just, coming on to the end of the budget is when it was brought in to be presented. Our director of community services in and talked about the projects, possible projects moving ahead. And then I honestly, I'm lost as to where it went. I thought that it was there. So
well, I just wonder, Councillor Corey, if there was information that involved a portion of money coming provincially or whatnot. I'm sure there would have to be correspondence. So I'm wondering if Director Kristen or CAO Rob, if either one of you would know if there was anything sent on that or discussed.
Okay, I'll speak just for a second there. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I had a discussion with Councillor Snow earlier today just to advise him that there was no monies set aside in the budget for the active transportation strategy. We haven't heard anything new from the province with respect to any potential projects that they may want to cost share. I think a lot of things are, at least from the province's perspective, are on hold until I guess restrictions are lifted.
Right.
What I had suggested to the community services chair that if council wants to consider this as something as a possibility to be amended to the budget, we can certainly look at that. We can come back with some recommendations as to how we would propose to fund the city's share under that. That could involve like whether maybe a project has to be deferred or we look at some other possible funding sources for that.
I think one of the things that I'm thinking of as you speak to that is we didn't expect anything as what we're now experiencing with COVID-19 pandemic. And as we look at all of the different departments, there certainly has been a loss of revenue that we would have seen projected in the budget. And I'm just wondering if that's something that we're really going to have to take a close look at, because what we were estimating or projecting in the budgets from the directors in the departments, that is going to change because of COVID-19 with the revenue, if I'm understanding that. And I just wonder if that's something that we could talk about once we find out if the province, if there's going to be, you know, maybe some kind of an extension or that sort of thing that we could look into. Would everybody be agreeable to that? Just.
Yes, and I think our Director of Finance and our CAO, Rob, or both, could follow up with the province as well to see exactly where that is. Go ahead, any other councillor, comments?
I know that the Provincial Active Transportation Committee has met on a couple of occasions, and I thought they were having an intake of projects, and I thought, unlike Councillor Snow, I thought we were submitting a project into that intake. And
sorry, Brian, we did submit several projects. One that was identified as the first step over years, because if we all recall, this is the tax dollars related to, what is it related to? Something. Anyway, it's the tax dollars coming in that it's the ones that they used to use for free licenses that they just
you get how many million over the years, but
right, exactly. So it's not a one-time thing, it's over years. So
our submissions are in.
Our submissions are in the,
so we really
there's
don't
just nothing in the budget.
Yeah, so when we hear back on those submissions, then we'll have a decision to make.
Sounds good here. I just want to let people notify, because I had spoken to a few other councillors who were under the same understanding that the money was in the budget. So if it did come to fruition that they wanted us to move on it, or our submission was accepted, and then the money's not there, then we'd all be caught off guard. So it just happened I was caught off guard, and I wanted to clarify.
I was worried the submissions weren't in, so that's good.
Yeah.
So if the submissions are in and anything is sent to us from the province, then that would be put on a finance committee meeting and then brought to all of council for that discussion and decision. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions for the Chair of Finance? If not, we'll continue on with Tech Services. Councillor Justin Duran, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening to everybody. I'll get right into the report, I guess. It was submitted on behalf of Aaron McDonald, the Director of Tech Services. The 2020 construction season is upon us. Staff are in the process of preparing tenders for the 2020 capital projects. The first few tenders have closed and have been awarded. Water main replacement, sewer main replacement, Cedar Street Sewer, Eco Park Phase 2, and paving have all closed and have been awarded. The city is currently out for bids this week, and they include sidewalk, infill, and boardwalk replacement. Tenders will continue being evaluated and will continue for the month of April. We will then be ready to start construction when the current situation allows for construction. Staff continues to review and assist the public with pending developments and building permits to be issued for this year. We ask that citizens and business owners continue to submit your information for permits. Our staff are continuing to work remotely and are reviewing all information submitted and responding back to these submissions if any additional information may be required for their permits. A number of building permits were issued for the month of March, and since spring is here, a number of these are for new construction projects. We issued 13 new single-family, 3 semi-detached, and 2 7-unit buildings. Also, there was a few for interior renovations and additions to various buildings. As of March 31st, the province has brought in a new act whereby the National Building Code is now being applied province-wide. So as a result of this new act, our staff have been working on some revisions that will need to be made to some of our own bylaws. And when these revisions are completed, they will be brought forward. Several developers are still reaching out to staff for assistance with their proposed projects for 2020. Staff will continue to work with these developers to bring these developments to the permit stage. And as always, citizens are encouraged to ask for assistance with their projects that they may have planned for 2020. And that concludes the tech services report for March, I guess.
Thank you, Councillor Drawn. Maybe CAO Rob, just to clarify, the National Building Code, you had mentioned something last week about portions of it, or portions of PEI may not be until 21. Would you just mention that so anybody watching knows?
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So right now, the city is operating under what is known as the 2010 version of the National Building Code.
Other parts of the province as well?
So the other municipalities, the other main municipalities, Charlottetown, Stratford, and Cornwall, have their own bylaws with respect to the building code, as we do.
Okay.
The rules and regulations that were put out by the province about a week or two ago relates mostly to those municipalities that are either not incorporated or do not have their own bylaws with respect to building code requirements. So that was the reason why that communication came out.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further comments, Councillor Drawn, or any questions for the Chair of Tech Services?
I have a question, I guess, on the development that's going on up in my area.
Go ahead, Councillor Campbell.
Aaron and Linda, neither one are here, so if Justin would sooner talk to me afterwards about it, and I know there's a lot of residents that are upset up here.
Is that the one across from Craig?
Yeah.
I've
been asking Aaron for whatever reason, I don't know, and I don't want to start anything. I've asked him who owns the property, who's doing the development, and he keeps telling me that he doesn't know.
Okay.
And in the next breath, he'll say that person was there in the office the following day looking for giving them advice. So the stories don't add up, and it's pretty embarrassing when you have at least a dozen people ask you what's going on, and you have to tell them you don't know, and they want to know who's doing it. And you have to tell them you don't know. And they say, well, the city should know. And I said, no, apparently I've been told by the city that they don't know who the developer is. So
I think the developer, I don't remember his name, but he is the current owner of the land, I believe. CAO Rob or Mayor Basil might correct me. I know there was some emails going back and forth. I believe he now has a clearing now that kind of allows him to get back into the lot. And that's probably what people are seeing. And if I understand correctly, that is zoned R4, which basically allows anything up to an apartment building. I think R5 is a trailer park. He can't do that because it's an R4. And I think the reason for that clearing was for him and contractors or analysts to get into the lot and see what kind of, how suitable it might be for any particular development. I don't think he's submitted any applications for permits or anything, but they needed to clear that, I'll call it a path or a road to get into the lot, because it's all
have you
woods.
seen it? It's not a path, it's the whole woods.
It's the
But he
wooded
owns-
area, yeah. And he owns the area, and he's by rights able to do anything to that land up to and including an R4.
And I'm not questioning any of that. What I'm questioning is why would they tell me they don't know who the developer is if they know who the developer is. And I have to pass that message on to there's 12 houses that it's up there.
I'm not sure
and-
there is a developer at this point, and again, CAO Rob or Mayor Basil, you can correct me. I don't think there is a developer. It's just the property owner that is interested in exploring the possibility of using the land for something. I don't think there's a development plan that has been submitted at all. But the only way for him to explore that possibility was to get in there and clear some of the trees.
Okay.
I wish that this information would have been a little more open. I mean, I could have went to see some of the residents of the area
Thank
because
you.
they're quite concerned. That's all. They just like to know what's going on, and I don't blame them for that.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. We will certainly find out that information for you. I honestly don't know, other than I saw the dozers in there cleaning up the area. And it may be an opportunity to get that swamp area cleaned out, but I got no idea if there's a developer planning to develop on it right away or what. But we'll get that information to you, Councillor Campbell, as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions for the Chair of Tech Services?
Yeah, I just had one quick question.
Councillor Adams.
Your Worship. Councillor John, you had mentioned that the first few tenders have closed and have been awarded, and we have been told that there's a difference between being awarded and the actual contractor being advised. So have they been advised yet that they've been a successful tender?
I expect they have been. CAO Rob, you can probably, you've been here at City Hall, I guess more recently than I have been. You're probably more aware of the papers going back and forth. I believe they have been.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Duran. And yes, Councillor Adams, any tenders that were recently approved and awarded by Tech Services Committee and or Council, we've entered into contracts with, or are about to enter into contracts with the successful bidders. And we know that some contracts have been signed and we're waiting on a couple of others. So all the vendors have been advised at this point.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Are
you.
those the successful awarding of those, the successful bidder, are those listed on our website as they had been in the past?
Oh, CAO Rob, you're muted.
Mute it, Rob.
My apologies. We're in the process, Councillor McFeely, of having our website updated to reflect those awards, and it should be done shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for the Chair of Tech Services?
No.
If not, we'll continue on with Councillor McFeely. You will have the floor. Economic Development report. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll move right into the report and thank Director Mike Tatuska for the report. The Office of Economic Development continues to conduct its operation with as much normalcy as possible during these unprecedented times. We have and are continuing to prepare for the infrastructure work as part of phase 2 of the Echo Business Park. And we'll be ready to hit the ground running once we have a better sense of how the future unfolds. We're also in the design phase for the 2 properties we would like to see sold in 2022.
We got some sound problems. We can't hear you, Brian. Well, it's very loud, and then all of a sudden we can't hear anything. Are you there now?
You're okay.
What you got going tonight, Brian?
Huh?
Okay, you're clear now. Go ahead.
Confusion going here. I'm always having sound problems. I don't know what the issue is. Maybe people are shutting me off. That might be it.
No, I wouldn't do that.
So we certainly have interest in over 20,000 square feet of leasable space under an intent to lease agreement if things move forward. The office will be issuing later this month a request to collaborate as part of the innovation in building design, part of this process as well. The office is continuing as one of the leads in the Sunbank project, and I know others will speak to that in their report. So I won't spend a lot of time talking on it. We are currently going through some environmental and system studies but again, hope to start construction on that site in the late summer, early fall. We're also continuing to work with our partners, Samsung, SRE, on some exciting initiatives, including phase 2. The office is working on addressing some of our legacy projects, including updating all our information sources, looking at a complete update of our business directory, consolidating resources for business post-COVID, and continuing to further some important economic development initiatives to help kickstart and grow our economy. As council will know, we had a request for qualifications on what's commonly known as Hippenstall's Corner there, the land that's there. That closed on Friday. Did receive some response. Those will be submitted in the coming week, or will be evaluated in the coming weeks. And we'll be looking and qualifying prospective developers and bringing something back to council on that. Would like to talk a little bit, Your Worship, about the effect of COVID-19 on the business community. And council is aware that the Economic Development Office had sent out a survey to help us understand the impact of COVID-19 on our business community. The results of this survey are still coming in, but early analysis suggests the business community feel that the city can best assist them during the recovery period when things start to open up again. What that assistance may look like is certainly yet to be determined. Certainly the federal and provincial governments have the primary role, and we certainly must give credit and thanks to both those levels of government for the response to the business community needs. We know there are gaps in their programs, as there always are. Nothing is perfect, especially when rolling things out as quickly as these two orders of government are doing. Then they are be commended for that. What role we may play as municipality is yet to be determined, but certainly there is a supportive piece of work to be done, some of which is already being done by the Economic Development Office, as I alluded to earlier. So, Your Worship, the Economic Development Committee is planning on developing a task group and inviting the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Summerside group, and perhaps a representative from the province to join us in a collaborative effort to meet some needs of the Summerside business community that have been affected by by closures due to the virus. I know that the office has already had some preliminary discussions with some of these partners, and there certainly is a desire to work together to explore where some efforts might be beneficial for the business community. So we hope to convene our first meeting in the next couple of days and explore what some of the possibilities may be. And we'd certainly be bringing some recommendations back to council from those deliberations. So that's my report, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. Any questions for the Chair of Economic Development by any councillors?
A comment more than a question, I guess. I think Brian's probably aware that the doctor retention thing, we're having terrible luck here in Summerside. Dr. Walker's had a very serious heart attack, and I wish him well. We're missing him, and I think Dr. Bannon may be having some health issues too and looking about retirement. So that'll have to be put on the top of our agenda coming up.
Yeah, certainly that sort of raises the need. Councillor Campbell, you're quite correct.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell, for your comments, and Councillor McFeely for your report. If there are no further questions on economic development.
I do.
Sorry, Councillor Deputy Mayor McCollum, you had a question?
Yes, I just wanted to speak to the fact, Mayor Basil, that you had sent council some information that there was correspondence received from, I believe, the federal government looking for projects that would be shovel ready.
Yes, that might through the FCM as well, yes.
Right, and I'm just wondering if there would be any way that council could look into that to maybe discuss some projects that would be shovel ready. One of the things that I'm hearing about even through this COVID-19 is that it would be so helpful for a grocery store downtown. And that is something that if we could find a connection there, that there's some buildings down there that could be utilized.
Right, thank you. Yes, shovel ready and getting permission, you know, with this COVID situation to move ahead is sort of situation that has to be dealt with in regards to the shovel-ready funding and projects. So that is certainly in the mix and being followed up, Deputy Mayor McColman. Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll move along to Councillor Ramsey. I have a police and fire service and emergency planning report. The floor is yours, Councillor Ramsey.
I do. I have a few reports here. But before I read my report this evening, I'd like to extend my deepest condolences to the family, friends, and neighbors in Nova Scotia. This is a heartbreaking situation, and I cannot imagine the pain that they are feeling today and the days ahead. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank both Summerside Police Services and Summerside Fire Services and all essential workers and their families. You are our first responders, and you continue putting yourselves in harm's way. I am proud of the work that you are doing, and I commend you for that. Please know that the city of Summerside is proud to call you our own. So it's a rough time for everybody right now, and it's a strange time. I'm going to get into the police report, and so after each report I read, if anybody has any questions, we'll just kind of go with that.
Councillor Ramsey, just before you start there, in regards to sad things happening, but I got word today that a former councillor, still a young man, Councillor Sandy McDonald, he was councillor here a number of years ago, passed away today. His dad was the former judge in Summerside, Chester.
That's
so anyway,
right.
Sandy was a great councillor, and he passed away too young today.
Yeah, that's Sandy's about my age, and you know, there were a few sad things that happened this week, and one would be Mrs. Duguay here from my ward,
Yes.
who I grew up with her children, and she passed away. And a cousin of mine, Allison Campbell, lost her boy, and he was 25 years old. And anyway, just suddenly, so there's just a lot of sadness going on, and it's just kind of getting to everybody. I think it's getting to me anyway. So with that, I'll go into our police report. So Constable Montgomery, who was our constable up at Three Oaks High School, of course, has returned to the patrol section because of the school shutdown over the COVID-19. He'll remain on the platoon until the province decides whether or not the schools will reopen. Police had some of their staff work from home during the month, and also made arrangements in the platoon system to ensure that they had uninfected platoon available to work in the event of an outbreak. They also made arrangements with Charlottetown Police and RCMP to take over the dispatch center should any of their dispatch people become infected. And they have been segregated, dispatch have been segregated from the patrol staff to ensure their safety. The staff have been responding to concerns from public health for self-isolation, etc. The training and service enhancements, the identification member attended 2-week advanced friction ridge analysis course in Ottawa, and Corporal McCarthy spent 2 weeks training cadets at the Atlantic Police Academy in Stanford field sobriety testing. And his salary was covered by the federal government for the Impaired Driving Initiative. There haven't been any police activities as a result of the coronavirus. And some of the statistics for the month of March are as follows. Calls for service were 394. Traffic accidents were 17. Reported crimes of assault and threats were 16. Theft reports were 15, impaired driving offenses were 6, highway traffic offenses were 14 plus 4 warnings, break and enter reports, business and residential were 9, and drug enforcement charges were 12. So any questions on that report, you can just ask me or Chief Dave, and we can get you answers to that. But another topic I want to just talk about before we leave policing is I wanted to speak about unsightly properties. Now that the snow is gone and the spring is here, myself, as well as many other counselors, have been receiving complaints regarding this concern. When this happens, it is our police services that are responsible for addressing these issues, and it can take up a lot of their time. And as you can well imagine, our officers are busy with all sorts of activities throughout this pandemic, as well as continuing to protect our citizens. So I'm asking Summerside citizens to please follow the guidelines of our bylaws to ensure that your properties are kept to the required standard. We did release information on what is deemed acceptable via social media. So we put it on the City of Summerside webpage, Facebook, and Police Services webpage. So I just ask that maybe, we could try to start to follow those guidelines without having our police officers to go visit. We're working really hard to try and get a bylaw officer in place. And we've been doing that for the last year or so, and we're still working on it and have been talking about it as early as today. So anyway, that's it for police services. And I know there's a couple of councillors that would like to speak on some of the issues. So
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey, for your report on the police department. I believe some councillors have questions. If so,
yeah, they do.
Any questions for the chair of Police Committee?
So Corey?
Yeah.
Councillor?
Sure. So I think all my fellow councillors are quite aware of my thoughts around our bylaw enforcement, and I don't want to say lack thereof, but unfortunately that's the way it appears at times to many of my residents, and I think it's fair to say other residents throughout the city of Summerside. Bylaw enforcement is not a fancy job, and I've been one to speak very openly that I don't think our police force should be the ones having to day-to-day look after our bylaw enforcement. I've been pushing from the very first budget to try to find monies to hire either an additional staff or find money in our police services so we could have somebody dedicated to bylaw enforcement along with whatever other duties to make it work, whether or not it's traffic or something. But right now, the current system, although it works at times, I think we have a number of properties throughout our city that are falling through the cracks, that neighbors, and not a word of lie, today I received 3 messages, one phone call and 2 messages regarding the same property. And it's one that I've received several other messages over the weeks, and it runs back to last year. And it's unfortunate that people have to put up with this. We all pay our taxes. We all work very hard to maintain our property. We all have different levels of income, but we all take pride in what we do have and work hard to take care of it. So when you have to live beside or in front or behind or whatever a property that either the homeowner or the tenants living in the place, if it's a rental, are not taking care of it, it's discouraging. And I can see the frustration, and I hear the frustration when I talk to them. And in some of my correspondence with fellow councillors and CO this week, I'm really getting tired of the same thing coming to me and me having to try to find not excuse, because that's not the right word, but reasoning why it's not being addressed. And it's getting harder and harder every time to say the same thing over and over. And I'd really like us to take a really solid look as a council on how we are going to address these issues, because it is as serious as any other issue we have in our city to the people that are living right beside it or right in front of it and having to deal with it every day. We're in the summer, everything's starting to melt and everybody's out in their yards doing work, and our phones get really busy, and they should, and we should get called and we should get hounded about these properties, but we need to have a way that we can really deal with them in a time sensitive way. So that's all. I'll continue to preach until we figure something out, but I really need fellow councillors and city staff to get behind this, because I really think it's something we need to focus on.
Thank you,
Yes.
Councillor Snow. Was there another councillor with a question? Or
Yeah.
to Councillor Ramsey?
I just wanted to address Councillor
Go
Snow
ahead.
for a second, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and today I did, like, the police are out there and they are trying to address it, and I have to give them credit for that, because I in fact saw them today. And I spoke to them as well. So I know, but there's just so much going on that Councillor Snow, I know exactly what you mean. A bylaw officer would be the answer. And if we can arrange that at all, then, then I hope that's what can take place. Thank you very much, Councillor Snow.
Was there another councillor? Another question?
I think, well, I had Justin, but Justin, you put your finger
Councillor
down.
Duran.
Fingers
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah, he was there. Bruce.
It was, I just wanted to add before we move on, something related to fire. So if Councillor McDougall, if you had something with regards to unsightly, you feel free to pop in with that first.
Okay.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Bruce.
My question was around the school resource officer. The province was supposed to have contributed, and I was just wondering if we received any payment of that yet, and where would the cutoff be from the money that they gave us last year?
Exactly.
Yeah, where does it start and stop? And do we just send them a bill?
Well, I was thinking about that, Bruce, and I think he started in October and
Right.
he stopped about a month ago. So whatever the government, whatever the provincial government would have provided, there would be that much coming
So
out of their account, right?
Can we not send them a bill for that?
Well, they've already gave us money.
Their portion?
We're paid for that. They gave us money for that.
Oh, so we got it for this year?
We got it. We already have it from October to June, I think, Rob, right? We got the first payment. Yeah.
Correct.
You're on your.
I'm on this year's budget. We approved the officer in this year's budget. Have we received 5 cents for this
But
year?
no, that's just kind of set aside for now. I think, Rob, with everything you guys just talked about, any money coming from the province right now for any special projects, we just kind of, I don't think, unless CAO Rob knows more.
No, I was just going to ask Kristen if I hadn't heard anything from the province officially around 2020, 2021 funding
Right.
that the province would potentially. But Kristen, is there anything?
I haven't heard anything either. We did receive money for September to June.
Right.
Right. So there is from,
For last year, are you
For
talking?
Last year.
This year. Right now.
For this school
This-
year, sorry, this school year.
there's from September till March, right? That
Of this current
This-
fiscal year.
this fiscal year,
Yeah.
that if we're gonna split it, why don't we just send them a bill?
But I think it's
We're
up
already
until June.
paid.
Isn't it up until June that,
Yeah.
for this
We're
year?
paid.
They've paid until June of this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to, yeah. And he's not working for the school right
Right,
now.
I realize that.
For us.
And-
Don't be saying that out loud.
Well, he is, and
No,
like,
it's
we
true.
have to consider that, right?
Yeah, it's
Just,
good.
just to follow up, sorry, Councillor Snow, do you have something further?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I was just going to follow up on what I believe you had mentioned earlier, or some of the other councillors had mentioned to me by email or through conversation, but with the unsightly properties, we can talk about it tonight, and then we can come back next month and talk about it again, and the next month talk about it again. But in a way to get it processed and move forward, if somebody serves notice tonight at a monthly meeting, at our next meeting, there'll be a motion coming forward to deal with some of these unsightly properties and get a process in place so we can move forward and get them cleaned up. Besides, I mean, we obviously, yes, we got to talk about them, but there's a time when you move forward and get them cleaned up. So if there's a notice tonight that next month there's a motion coming forward to get some of these unsightly properties cleaned up, and we have a number of them, by the way, and as we all know, and but this is the time of year we got to move on it, because if not, we'll be wrestling with it all summer.
I totally agree with your worship. I know a couple properties that I'm currently thinking of sitting here are ones that we wrestled with all last summer. So the current situation or the current way we're dealing with these properties are not working. So I have no problem whatsoever moving a motion that, to give notice that we will be moving on these properties to get them cleaned up and send the bill to the owner, whatever we have to do. But we have to find a way that we can address this in a timely manner and we don't just keep kicking it down the road.
So you're serving notice that it'll be coming at the next monthly meeting, because I personally get some calls too about washers and dryers and fridges and everything else in backyards that
Front yard.
well, and backyards too. They're next door to property. So, but besides that, there are other areas that we have to move forward. And so at the next monthly meeting, there'll be a resolution or a motion that we move forward with a process to start either laying charges or cleaning them up and sending a bill to the owner.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. So
Yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying, Your Worship.
And I would certainly agree with that, Your Worship, and quite prepared to second such a motion. I walked by a couple of those places this morning and they really are deplorable. So I think we need to become more aggressive and we need to continue to explore that bylaw officer, but in the short term, we need to be aggressive with the ones we had for this summer.
thank you, Councillor McFeely. So Councillor Snow, you got a seconder coming up at the next meeting.
Perfect.
Okay.
I just have something to finish with.
Items.
I think the thing that we're missing, there's a couple steps that seem to be missing, is that when we request that these be looked at, if I was to receive a call, I would put the request in through CAO Rob, who would then pass it on to police services. So an area would have to be looked at. What's missing is we don't know what's happening. So when somebody calls us again saying what's been done with that, you know what I mean? There's a step missing. There's the reporting back of, do they have 30 days to get an object out of the yard? Or, is there an issue? Like, we have to make sure all that's covered, because people are calling us back. And when it's like Greg had said earlier, when we get asked repeatedly and we don't have the answer to the same questions over and over again, even though we're asking them, it becomes a bit cumbersome. And I think the thing that, since we are live with residents right now, you have to realize we have an amazing waste watch system in place. Like, there's no reason to have garbage all over the place. Like, we have the best that there can be. Other provinces are jealous of what we have. And I think now, with everybody being home, the weather being nice, we really have to put a push on this, and all the support in the world, because I'm getting calls, and it's not just right in town. I know Corey's issues, but I have some too, on Reed Drive and on the way into town on Water Street East, and they have to be dealt with. And people have to realize that if you don't want to take responsibility for yours, it's impacting your neighbor as well, right? So, it's not just you. And if you need help, they also have to realize they can reach out and ask for help. There are community groups that are more than happy to come in and help you get rid of that washer or dryer or whatever that you might not be able to move. So I think being able to call and ask, and for us to be able to help them, isn't also something we have to make sure the public know.
Those are the kinds of things, and think about it over the next couple of weeks. Those are the kinds of things that should be in the resolution, like be it resolved that. And whether it's 30 days to get it cleaned up or 2 weeks or whatever, and a number be it resolves, and then you get your questions answered that way, Councillor Adams. And when you move forward, everybody knows what the procedure is and will be.
And one of the things and Norma, I will get to you right in a second there, but one of the things I think we need to look at our bylaw, because I think if you own a rental property, it's the owner who's responsible for the rental property and not necessarily the person who's renting the home. So I think we need to have both in there. Can we check that and just make sure that they are both in there? And if we have to amend it, then we can. But for some reason, I think it's just the owner that's in there. And then that causes a problem too, right? Because if someone's renting and they're going, well, I don't care because I don't own the place. So anyway, so that's just something that we can look at if that's, yeah.
I don't
Norma?
know if it could, if I could just add this to Councillor Ramsey, but I don't know if we could put something in there for a renter. The owner of the property would be responsible and should be responsible. So, but anyway, we'll have Gordon, our in-house lawyer, look at that. But if the bylaw has to be tightened up, and it will be.
Because I think, Mayor Stewart, is that sometimes the owner lives away. And then there's no one. So I think if they have both in there but somebody has to be responsible for it. And I did talk to the police about that today, because that was one of the things that kind of came up that they do struggle with. So anyway, Councillor McCollum, or Deputy Mayor McCollum.
Well, the only point that I wanted to make, and I believe Councillor Carey had mentioned it in an email, that with the bylaw policy review committee, there's time spent going over the wording and all of the updating of those policies, and there's a fair bit of time put into them. So I think as we hear about, the nuisance or the unsightly premises, if there's not enough teeth and we try to put the wording in to make them effective, then I think it's really important that they're followed through on. But my other point is, I think in fairness, and if people are doing it and they really don't care, but I also think that it's important for us as a city that we have to try and find out, is there some illness? Is there something in the home that's causing that problem? And as somebody pointed out, there's lots of groups that can help, because the last thing I would want to do is cause a lot of embarrassment and a lot of things for people who may be in a situation through a health issue or some problem, and we need to try and find out what the problem could be and if there's someone that could help them.
That's right.
That's my thought. Okay.
Any further questions for the chair of the police committee?
I have one, Your Worship.
Councillor Drawn, the floor is yours, sir.
I just was wondering, Councillor Ramsey, if you may be able to clarify. I've been getting, and I know others have been as well, a lot of messages wondering about whether they can or cannot have fires in their yard.
Oh.
And I know the fire marshal's office had a statement regarding open permits for burning large piles of brush or what have you. But there was a bit of uncertainty, I guess, revolving around whether or not you can have a enclosed bonfire pit within city boundaries.
So am I correct in saying, maybe Rob, I'll let you take this, but I did think that there were not to be any homemade fire pits, that they had to be, had to be a real fire pits that were bought, and that, so there were a number of things that people were talking about over the last few days, but I'll let maybe CAO Rob answer that. He might have a better.
If I can just throw it in there too, I was talking to Rob. I had the fire chief up here last night, and he thanked me afterwards. There's a pile of brush. He said we could have lost a couple of buildings up here. I was going to call or put a motion in that we ban all fires until at least the mid of June. Nobody's going to be sitting out in this cold weather anyway. So there was newcomers that they're just great neighbors. They clean their property up, and he was going to burn all the stuff he cleaned up. And there's a lot of stuff still left around properties from the storm last fall. And people, some of the people that are looking after their properties, but I talked to the fire chief last night, and if he could have some kind of a ban totally for at least a month and a half or so, that we get any of the loose things cleaned up, would certainly help. But he was there last night, and so we made a great choice in the fire chief.
Oh,
thank you.
In order to enforce it, you would have to have a bylaw, because right now I believe it's in the bylaw that they can be in backyards in certain areas of the cities.
And then a bylaw officer would be nice as well to help enforce it.
And does the provincial thing?
Like clean wood, I think maybe we'll let Rob speak on that, but I think it's not push.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Ramsey. So yes, there is a provincial fire ban in place, but, and of course that does apply to the city, but however, backyard fire pits and outdoor wood stoves are still permitted as long as residents do follow the guidelines that are on our website. And as an example, like the size of the fire should not exceed 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. Fires may be tended in a ground pit with a non-combustible base. Above ground fireplaces must be made of non-combustible material, like metal, brick, and cement, etc. And of course, outdoor fireplaces and pits need to be kept in good repair. That's just a sample of some of the guidelines. So those are still allowed. But in the discussion I had with Councillor Campbell today, I mean, again, what we do have in place is allowed. But if council wants to put further restrictions in place for the next, whatever it is, month or 2 months, I mean, that is certainly their prerogative.
And we hate to have our firemen out right now with what's going on in the world too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell, for bringing that to the floor. So
I'm
just
getting a
to,
bit into fire here.
yeah, just before you do that, Councillor Ramsey, but in order to get, I believe Councillor Campbell asked for the ban on fires, or was that just a suggestion? And if it's asked for, will council want to do with it? Or do you want some time to think about it? Or like I said, sometimes we can get into these conversations, but I like to try to have them worded in a way that we're either going to do something about it or stop talking about it, sort of thing.
Aren't we not allowed to burn anything except clean wood anyway, right? You're not supposed to be burning leaves and shrubs, and like, they're not allowed to do that anyway.
No.
That's right.
And in fairness, last night it was a newcomer's house, so I don't think they're quite aware of a lot of the things. It wasn't a problem at all. Someone was pointed out by the fire chief.
Yeah, but I think Carrie and I were talking the other day, councillors, Carrie and I, and we did, it is posted on our website and on Facebook and what exactly is allowed. So, so yeah, because I got a call the other day too, when people were burning leaves and stuff, and the police had to be involved. So that's not allowed anyway, Councillor Campbell. I think just, you know, in a small fire pit to have a fire on an evening, if it was a nice evening in June or whatever, May, that's acceptable. I don't know.
So for the fire chief or the fire department or anybody to enforce it, they need to have a regulation in place. They just can't go by what somebody told them, sort of thing. We'd have to have something in place for them to back it up if they're going to try to get somebody to quit burning, those kinds of things. We should have, maybe tomorrow, CAO Rob, if you could talk with our in-house lawyer and to see if there's a way we could get the bylaw tightened up where the chief would have some authority to act if he got complaints.
And I think it's a special occasion too, with the sicknesses on the road, we putting their firemen in right now, and with all the garbage that was left from last fall in the storm. Like there's two other things that are kind of pressing or making it a little tougher on our fire chief.
But they should know that they're not allowed to burn that. And you know, I get a call every so often. I mean, quite often, but it's always from the same person.
Yeah.
And I've always told them, look, I don't want to ruin it for 99% of the people that go out and enjoy having their kids in the backyard or whatever. We haven't got a whole lot of privileges right now. And I sure wouldn't want to take that away from them too. You know, if this became an issue, I'd be the first one to support it. I don't think a couple of people that are new and probably didn't know the issue should change it for everybody else. Just my thought for now.
And I guess if I can enter into that point you're making, Councillor McDougall, I think we also need to remember that a lot of research went in provincially as to what's taking place across the island with fires and backyards, that sort of thing, because we had an awful lot of debate on it. And I also agree that for the 99% of the people that are responsible for how they're doing it, and having that, and a lot of things right now people can't do, but that's one thing where families or whatnot, they can do that on a nice evening. And I'd hate to see us really clamp down so heavy that it takes away some of the few things that people can do as a family. So I think maybe just letting people know, not a warning, but if there are people that are new to the community or not familiar with what the expectations are, just a complimentary handout with the brochure, and to let them know, first of all, what is expected. That would be really helpful.
And
Yeah,
we
I
did
think
have brochures, right? We had some really nice ones, I think, made
Yeah.
up there. So, yeah.
the last 3 or 4 years at this time of year, or perhaps a little bit later, we had did a whole communication plan around fires and open fires. Should be a little proactive, and I kind of think that maybe we should seek out sort of a recommendation from the fire chief and what his thoughts may be on it. Sort of, a middle of the road approach here. I kind of agree that we don't want to be too hard-handed with it, but at the same time, we need to protect the firemen and safety.
But I believe that we need to put a message out there on our website and Facebook and whatever, that yard waste is not to be burnt. That's a big issue that they're doing. And the sooner we get that message out, the
Because
better.
that's really the only problem.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like that's what it always comes down to. People are burning, things that they should.
I think our current bylaw, the way it's written and in place, has all the appropriate guidelines and rules. It's just a matter of enforcing those rules. And I think that's probably what happens. I don't know for sure, Bruce, what your complaint is, but I assume at times people go outside what those boundaries are in the bylaw and, become a nuisance to their neighbor. And then that's when it's a problem, right? So it's just a matter of making sure we're enforcing the rules and the bylaws as they're written and in place, and making sure we have a mechanism to address those bylaw infractions. So.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for your comments on that. Councillor Ramsey, I believe you still have the floor.
I do. Yeah, I do. I'm going to do the fire report, but you know what, guys? I'm going to turn my light on. Just give me a second. Because it's blind. It's getting dark. There. Okay. Now I can see. Okay, so I'm going to do the fire report for March 2020. It was submitted by Ken Culleton, and there were 16 calls for assistance during the month of March. 3 medical first responder calls, 1 structure fire, 5 alarm panel calls, 1 electrical fire, 4 miscellaneous calls, 1 carbon monoxide, and 1 cancel call. Firefighter training sessions totaled 74.5 hours for the short month. So because of COVID-19, they didn't get as much training in. All the activities for firefighters have been suspended, including firefighter training, fitness in the gym, fire school meetings, and social activities. Even though all of our activities are following strict protocols with physical distancing and suspension of normal daily routines, we are there, ready, and waiting for our residents in the event that we are needed, respectively, Ken Culleton. So anyway, I know they're working hard. Like you say, Councillor Campbell, our chief is called out to do different sightings and giving different information to folks on what's taken place. And so that's it for fire, unless anybody has any questions on that.
Any questions for the Chair of Fire Services? No. I do not see any fires burning there, Councillor Ramsey, so we're lights on.
We're good to go. Okay, so I have a current report for emergency measures from our CAO, Rob Philpott. He sent this off to me today. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to evolve around the world and in our local community, the health and well-being of Summerside residents remains our top priority. All levels of government are monitoring the situation and have taken measures to ensure public health readiness at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels. Here in Summerside, the city is following the guidelines provided by the Provincial Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Morrison, to monitor the situation and taking all the necessary steps to be fully prepared for any appropriate responses. In the meantime, residents are encouraged to delay any non-essential business with the city or to consider conducting business online or by phone where possible. All emergency services and essential municipal services are continuing. We are in regular contact with the Provincial Emergency Measures Organization for any development on our COVID-19 response. These are challenging times for our community. We recognize that the pace at which decisions and changes are occurring is disruptive and disconcerting, and that these decisions may have significant impact on those we serve. We regret the disruption these changes will have. However, the safety and well-being of our residents and our community is top priority. Based on the recommendations of our provincial and federal healthcare leaders, we believe these decisions are in the best interest of our community and our collective health. And that was submitted by Rob. Thank you, Rob, for that. And so it looks like we're being well looked after at all levels. And I certainly appreciate that. And with that, that concludes my 3 reports. And if anyone has any questions, Norma.
I do. It's more of a comment, Councillor Barb, and I'm sure I speak for all members of council and Mayor Basil, but I do want to thank CAO Rob and all of the senior management team directors, because they have done a very, very great job keeping us all informed of all of the status updates of the reports as well. I think we all see that with Dr. Heather Morrison and Miss Marion Dowling with Health PEI, Premier King, government officials, they certainly have stepped up to the plate and have kept a lot of information and decisions happening to really keep people safe. So I've heard from a number of doctors just in chatting that the comments are that we're very fortunate that we have Dr. Morrison leading this team. So I just want to thank them on behalf of Mayor and Council, because they're doing a great job, and CAO Rob and directors as well.
Thank you, Norm.
Thank you,
And I just want to take a moment to just thank all levels of government and the way that they're working together. I'm so impressed, and I think we're very lucky to live in a country like Canada. Anyway, thank you. That's my report.
We're living in the best corner of the world.
We sure are. We sure are. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ramsey, for your 3 reports. We'll continue on with Councillor Snow. How are things in recreation and community services? Fairly busy circumstances, but
definitely not the normal circumstances for this time of year within community services, that's for sure. So I'd like to just begin by thanking JP DeRozier. He compiled the report. March 2020 began like many others with staff preparing for a long list of events in the weeks and months that lie ahead. However, by mid-March, March 13th to be more specific, it became evident that our worlds were going to change, and change drastically in short order. In early March, event staff attended the Power Sport and Motorcycle Trade Show in Halifax to promote Atlanticade. That is taking place at Green Shore in August of 2020. The trade show gave staff a first-hand opportunity to market and promote Atlanticade to a large gathering of events target demographic in Atlantic Canada. The event's new brand and a long list of new activities was very well received by trade show guests and delegates. Additionally, facility staff were eagerly planning and preparing for March break camps and programming, also getting ready for the annual Mardi Gras Rec Hockey Tournament, Midget AAA Atlantics, Eastern Canadian Judo Championships, the ADL Food Show, Harlem Globetrotters, along with many more events that were on sale to the general public. However, as March moved along, it became evident that the mounting global concern of COVID-19 situation was likely to have an impact on PEI and the city of Summerside. On the evening of Friday, March 13th, the decision was made by the Director of Community Services in consultation with the CAO to close Credit Union Place indefinitely with a primary objective of public safety. Although the facility is closed, the Fit Stop Fitness Center offers a variety of free online classes. Each class is led by an instructor and are being offered 7 days a week. various times throughout the day. Additionally, the department is offering online activity challenges multiple times a week to bring some creative fun into people's homes during the time of social distancing. As we continue to navigate through these unprecedented times, the Community Service Department continues to work from home on many of the tasks that are delegated their way. That is my report as it's written, but also just on the end point there where it says they're working from home, just to be clear, a lot of our staff are not working from home as well and are out in the communities. In particular, I think people have flocked to our beautiful boardwalk, maybe more so than normal, getting out and walking. And I know I've been down there biking with the kids and walking, and there's quite a difference. They're getting out to do some work that maybe we normally don't get to do as a community service department. They're doing a lot of cleaning up from post-Dorian trees, limbs and stuff in along the Mackenzie Drive area there. And it's really noticeable the work they're doing. Also, we with winter ending, we had a lot of complaints along the boardwalk about dog feces and that sort of stuff, dog droppings that weren't being picked up. So they've been down and cleaned that up, and it's an issue that I'd really like to bring to the attention of our residents, that are dog owners, to make sure that they're doing their part in cleaning up. You're using the trail. If you don't have a dog bag with you, then you got to realize that there's a good chance your dog is going to have to use the bathroom. And if you don't have a dog bag, then how are you going to clean it up? So let's make sure we're all doing our part, and take the doggy bags with you and clean up after your dog and enjoy the beautiful boardwalk we have. So that's basically it for community services, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Snow. Any questions for the Chair of Community Services by any councillor?
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Councillor Duran.
Just along with the whole boardwalk responsible pet owners item, there are some, just to let the public know, because I actually had to do it myself the other night. There are signs that kind of remind the public. Shouldn't have to remind them, but anyway, remind the public that you should be a responsible pet owner, and if not, you can report it. We were on the boardwalk the other night, approaching a couple that had a dog, and they were just letting kind of run loose, and they came into contact with another dog who happened to be on a leash. Luckily, there was no, nothing too serious went down, but you never know, if you get one dog that isn't the right dog, might not be as happy of an ending. So we put a call in to dispatch, and they sent an officer down, and he was there. And I don't know, we didn't stick around to find out if anything happened, but their police services is certainly willing to do what they can when they can, if they have to. So it was good to see an officer.
Justin, like it's very clear that dogs have to be on their leash. So if you have dogs off the leash, then you're responsible for what might happen. So if you're on the boardwalk or out and you're not on your own property, your dog needs to be on a leash, and you're responsible for any of the droppings that your dog might or whatever other animal you're walking might have while you're out. So we're just asking all our residents and visiting neighbors, if you're in visiting our beautiful boardwalk and using it, to be respectful of everybody else that's using it and clean up after yourself. So
I know more signs are going up there. I'm not sure if they're finished right yet or not, but JP Derosier, the director, said that more signs would be going up along that walkway. The winter, I guess, was pretty hard in some of them, but we look forward to that. Any further questions? Just to make this comment to Councillor Snow. I know things are a little quiet right now at Credit Union Place, quite a bit, very quiet. But when the dust settles, when the COVID thing gets under control, I think Three Oaks, or the government, announced that there would be graduations. And the Heart and Stroke Association was booked for the Credit Union Place, and a number of other things. So I think it's important, if Three Oaks are going to have the graduation and these kinds of things, that things get booked in early, because things will bunch up fairly quickly with so many things that were canceled. So maybe if I think JP was going to be watching tonight on YouTube, our meeting, there's some things that I know they can't book the dates yet, but when I heard the province talking today that they may look at certain things over the next few weeks. So in order to get all of these great organizations accommodated, the sooner that they can be sort of penciled in, the easier it will be for community services and JP and his staff.
I agree with you, Basil. But that said, I have the utmost faith in JP and his staff to do as many events as possible and get everybody safely in and out and home and everything done well. They, like you say, this time of year in community services is usually probably our busiest time. We'd have the Western Capitals would be deep in the playoffs right now, and everybody's gearing up for baseball and all our Atlantics, and we had concerts, and it switched everything on its head. So unfortunately, that's what we're facing right now. But the community service staff are working hard out in the community and getting some other things done that we normally might not get to this early.
Something else that was planned too for this time was the concert for the time in aid of the Tyne Valley Arena. So there'll have to be a date sort of found in that general mix too. So anyway, it will be busy when things get settled. Councillor or Deputy Mayor McCollum, you had a question or a comment?
Well, I do make this point here a fair bit, but especially with COVID-19 pandemic, people certainly that are walking the boardwalk, and they're certainly doing the physical distancing if there's one or two of them as a family. But I have heard from different people just along there walking myself that they love that boardwalk and they appreciate either, there or the Rotary Park, just being able to walk and get out and get some fresh air. So just want to pass that on to community services, that people really are appreciating that.
I do it every day so
Yeah.
far, and I'm not sure if it's working or not, but I enjoy it, the fresh air and the exercise. But something else I wanted to mention too, and Corey had mentioned about the Western Capitals would be into the play. I think they would have the Royal Bank Cup won nearly by now, wouldn't they, Councillor Snow?
Yeah, we'd be well on our way. That's for sure. We'd be deep in the playoffs and just getting ready to hoist it, I would imagine.
As you probably know, I did send a letter to Hockey Canada asking them to consider increasing the age by 1 year, so all junior teams across the country could have a better way of ending their career. So anyway, they got the letter and they said they were going to have a look at it. So we'll wait and see what happens there.
Just remember, Your Worship, that Councillor Snow was a Leaf fan, so I wouldn't go by what he says, but
This was our year, Greg. This was our year for the Leafs.
Just before we get off the community services, I too, I'm down there twice a day walking, and I have reminded some people that about the social distancing. And but you know what? Most of the people are great. It's great. It's like everything else. 98% of the people are very good. There is a couple of people, and thanks for bringing that up, Justin, about with their dogs off a leash. I spoke to one lady and she almost tore my face off, but anyway, I think she's been rectified now. I haven't seen her lately. But no, I just want to commend the community services for the great job they're doing on the cleanup down there right now. It's awesome. There's a lot of boards being fixed besides the trees being cleaned up, and every time you get down there, they're working. So
that's great.
I had somebody stop me and compliment us on the boardwalk there today. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I
just
have something to say, except I don't know how to put my hand up.
Go ahead, Councillor Ramsey, go ahead.
Okay, and I won't take long, but I just want to commend the people of Summerside on that boardwalk, because I walk it every night as well, and you know what, everybody's doing really well at keeping their distance. And when I meet someone, they'll go to the other side or I go to the other side, and just thank you to the residents of Summerside for social distancing and just looking after each other through this time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. But speaking of that, Councillor McDougall, it's Kern and Briggs are cleaning it, and I want to mention this. This last couple of weeks, we lost a great Summerside businessman, Walter Reel.
Yes.
Was the owner of Kern and Briggs, and been in business here for years, and a great corporation. And we want to pass on condolences to Marion and all the members of Walter's family. And he will be missed dearly in the business world. And it was very sad to hear that he passed away. So I wanted to pass that on and pass on our condolences to his
Yes.
family. Thank you.
Harry Snow too, Your Worship.
Yeah,
That's
Harry
right.
is gone too, and
Yeah.
another great businessman in Summerside for years with Fitzgerald and Snow. So
I-
anyway,
I think Councillor Adams might have a question there too. She was trying to get in.
That's
okay.
all right.
Councillor Adams, you have a
I-
question or a
Yeah, I just
comment?
have one small thing. I think we should also thank the families, especially those with kids, because it's been trying to keep the kids entertained and not being able to use our playground equipment and
Right. Yeah.
the playground equipment at the schools that they also use after hours. And I think it's a real shout out to them is needed because you've been very respectful in the rules that were set out, and it's been noticed that unfortunately the playgrounds are all empty, but hopefully that makes things move along quicker.
And Councillor McDougall, see, a friend of ours passed away, one of the longtime councillors in Cape Breton, Ray Perouche. It was very sad to see that. And
Ray, I didn't know that.
yes, he passed away suddenly. And he was a long-time councillor, and he was really in touch. You knew where he stood with Ray.
Big time.
He wasn't shy, but a great person, and he'll be missed around the municipal table, that's for sure.
Yes.
So,
Your Worship, just one last thing before we move on. I just want to mention that there's a group of really great ladies from around my ward specifically that have been working on the Lifehouse shelter and are continuing to do so. I've been in regular contact with them. That's the women and children's shelter that I spoke of briefly there at one of our other council meetings, and myself and CAO and some others had met with the group. So I just want to sort of let councillors know that they're still there. They're still pushing and working hard to get something that is identified as needed within our city. And I just want to thank them for their work, and they continue to reach out to me to make sure I know what's going on and help whenever I can. But I just want to let you guys know that it's continuing to be pushed behind the scenes, and we'll be I'm sure we'll be talking to council again in the future. So
thank you. Just a couple other comments I'll make, and this is sort of an unusual monthly meeting where it's sort of a number of things we got to bring up because we don't meet as often under the circumstances. But our 25th anniversary, as we all know, was April the 1st, and that had to be canceled. It was the 25th anniversary of the new city. And also we had to cancel the junior mayor and council swearing in this year for now. And whenever the COVID thing gets settled, hopefully we can have that done. And the same with the 25th anniversary. There are a number of things planned, and the Mayor's Good Neighbor Award, the mayor was in memory of Frances O. Perry, the late mayor of Summerside. The award is in her name, so that will take place as time goes on here. When we can get some dates. So there's been a number of things canceled. Like I mentioned earlier, things will start to bunch up when things start to settle down, but those will be carried out as well. And the same with National Conference for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities was supposed to be in Toronto this year. That has been canceled. I'm not sure how they're going to process some of the business there, but that has been canceled because there's just no way they could have 3,000 or 4,000 people in a gathering right now. And I think it was, it was in late May or something like that, but they've got ahead of the ball to announce the cancellation. Having said that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Councillor Adams. You have Human Resources, Legal Affairs, and the Culture Summerside, and Policy and Review Bylaw. So the floor is yours, Councillor Adams.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Carrie.
I unmuted it, sorry.
Okay.
It's easier to listen to me the other way anyways. So we'll start with HR and Legal Affairs, and that was prepared by Director Gord McFarlane for Vice Chair Bruce McDougall and myself. Human resource staff have adjusted well to the new COVID-19 work environment. For the most part, staff have been working from home, and with the help of our IT department under the leadership of Jason, and Jason has to be thanked too. He's a huge part in our days now. The HR staff has been able to maintain the payroll system from home. So that's been a big one, not to have everybody having to go in to run the payroll. HR has been supporting other city departments, helping them develop their work arrangements to make sure essential city services are delivered in a safe manner. HR staff continue to support council as well with council's virtual meetings, just like Brian is here with us now and keeping an eye on things. It is also important to remember that in these uncertain times, staff's stress levels, just like everybody else, tend to increase. The HR department has been reminding staff of the benefits that we have offered through the Employee Assistance Program. Staff have been dealing with the same challenges that all of us are dealing with, caring for children who are at school, homeschooling them, living with relatives who might have other medical issues, worrying about finances, and you name it. We want to say thank you to all our staff for their tremendous public service over the last month. And I think they've all jumped in and helped where they could. And that's greatly appreciated. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions on HR Legal Affairs?
I do not see any requests, so you can continue on.
Keep trucking. Next is the Culture Summerside portion of that portfolio, and that was prepared by Lori Ellis, the manager of Heritage and Cultural Properties with the city, for Vice Chair McDougall and myself. The following report captures some highlights of Culture Summerside's activity from mid-March to mid-April. Culture Summerside staff have made a quick adjustment to the new restrictions connected to COVID-19, and we have been busy on several fronts. Just to name a few, content for the Culture Summerside website is being rewritten to better communicate event and service information to the community and the visiting public. A revised and improved Culture Summerside website is being developed internally. And this has been in the works for some time, and it was coming along slowly, but it seems to be advancing a little faster now that some of the sites are closed and work has been rearranged a little bit. There's just some architectural components and overall heritage integrity statements that they're working on. Each year, Culture installs an exhibit on the Water Street lamp poles of downtown Summerside. They're usually like a board with a little story and picture on them. This year's exhibit is now being developed. Exhibit research and writing is being conducted now for some of the exhibits that will be housed in the Summerside Armory post-renovation. Additional applications have gone out to organizations for funding for the Armory project, and staff are currently handling questions and requests for additional information on those files. The digitalization of irreplaceable historic footage and interviews is currently underway. Staff are updating social media accounts, organizing and keeping postings active, while also preparing information and training materials for the summer students. As well, the postings have gone out for some summer student positions in the hopes that that's all going to be able to happen. So, and students are off now, so there's lots of time to be working on those. Research requests and inquiries regarding history and genealogy are being handled as they come. So there's still somebody answering the phone, and those questions and work they can do not engaging with the public is still happening. So any questions on that?
Any questions for the chair? I do not see anybody with their hands up. Councillor Adams?
Okay.
Did you have any? Sorry, you have another one?
I have one more.
I have a quick question there, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Snow.
Sorry, I kept trying to unmute and it wouldn't unmute for me, so that's why there was a delay there in asking the question. But it's more so just a statement. We're still planning, just to let the public know, because I think all our council will remember a few months ago we had a presentation from the Lest We Forget Committee regarding a military museum and their desire to see one in around in Summerside. We have been working sort of behind the scenes with a member of the Lest We Forget Committee, and meetings are being planned to see what maybe can transpire on that front. So I guess just that comment, myself and CO and Lori and Carrie and some members are going to be meeting here in the coming days, weeks, whatever, to look into that. So
thank you, Councillor Snow. Councillor Adams, you still have the floor.
Yeah, so I'll just finish off with the Bylaw Policy Review Committee. This was prepared by CAO Rob for myself and Vice Chair's Deputy Mayor Norma and Councillor Justin Duran. Last fall, Council passed second readings for amendments to several bylaws in order to bring them into compliance with the new Municipal Government Act. The current catalog of bylaws is now up to date in terms of consistency in formatting, references, and numbering for retrieval purposes. Despite the restrictions brought on by COVID-19, the business of the municipality continues in many key areas. One of these aspects is BPR committee. And it has been focused on taxi bylaw. The committee has discussed proposal amendments to the bylaw. The next step will be to meet with industry representatives to seek their input on these proposed changes. Unfortunately, like so many other things, the plans could not take place for everybody to get together because it was, myself and other members of the BPR committee felt in order for everybody to have a say, we wanted all to be together, and the timing just wasn't right to have that many people in the same room for that length of time. So this will take place once restrictions are lifted. We want to make sure that those stakeholders in the industry realize it's going to happen, but like I said, same as many other things, unfortunately, it's just been put off a little bit because for that reason. A recommendation on proposed changes will be brought to council for discussion before anything would be made permanent, of course. Ongoing policy work, the committee will continue to assess areas within city policies and operations that merit further review. This will involve a combination of priorities for review identified by council, as well as staff suggestions on areas for follow-up. And we will keep council apprised of the progress. And I guess just to end, I will say, your unsightly premises bylaw, it's a bylaw, and we might not have the bodies that in place right now to make this like we would, but we're trying our hardest with what we have. We're trying to make sure that these are being looked at. Bylaws are in place because we want people to go by them. We don't want to have to be in a place of always having to enforce them. Like, rules are there for a reason. And unfortunately, when people break the rules, then legal and so on has to get involved. But if everybody can just, take a look at the bylaw, give a call, we're more than happy to help. But, just, try your best so that we don't have to, unfortunately, get to the situation we are in some of the properties in Summerside. Anyways, is there anything else? Anybody have any questions?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Councillor Adams, anything further on the taxi bylaw review? I don't think that there's been any final decisions made, eh?
No, it was because we couldn't get everybody in the same room. There was the multiple stakeholders, the multiple taxi companies. So in order for everybody to have a say, we wanted everybody to be in the same room at the same time so everybody could have their say and be appropriately represented. But due to COVID-19, we didn't feel that we could all get in the same room and practice our safe physical distancing. And we didn't want to have one-off meetings with people. We want to have everybody in the same room. So everybody is on the same level playing field whenever we go to make some changes to it. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything further to add at this point? Are there any questions for the chair? I think I heard somebody may have a question. Okay.
Yep, I have a question, Your Worship,
Councillor McPhee.
regarding the taxi bylaw. It's just something that I've thought about a little bit in terms of has the committee looked at whether in today's world there really is a need for a taxi bylaw other than ensuring that the cars are safe. We don't govern any other industry. Why are we governing the taxi industry? And there could be very valid reasons why we are governing the taxi industry, but I just wonder if that has been part of the discussion.
CAO Rob can probably go further into it, but we're not in the business of setting, telling somebody how much they have to charge. The same as we're not going to tell Superstore Sobeys that they have to charge a certain amount for a certain product. But I think what we're doing is putting safeguards in place that people aren't being taken advantage of, which we're not saying that this would happen, but that those safeguards are in place, and also the physical safety of our residents when they get into a cab. It has to be licensed and so on. So CAO Rob, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Adams. And yes, Councillor McFeely, just to go to your question, the focus of the committee in terms of this bylaw review has been primarily to take the bylaw in its current form and really just try to, for lack of a better term, just strip it down or boil it down to its component parts about really what should define the city's role. And we look at things like making sure that, as Councillor Adams said, that the taxis are appropriately licensed, that they have the correct insurance. We don't necessarily have a role to play in terms of the quality of the services that are offered. It's more just some of those basic things really that we as a municipality should be responsible for. And we do have some amendments that have been brought forward. Unfortunately, with the onset of COVID, we just haven't had the opportunity to engage in person with representatives of the industry to be able to have a discussion about these proposed amendments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. So I do not see any other questions for the chair. So thank you, Councillor Adams. And we'll move on to Councillor McDougall. You have a street sweeper report?
I do. This report was...
You're just dusting it off now, are you?
Pardon?
You're just dusting it off now.
Yeah, we have it dusted off. This report was put together by Director Greg Goody, and the water utility staff have been repairing many curb stops broken due to the frost heaves. And the public is advised that the curb stop or the water shut off at the property lines, if it's raised or missing, please let us know at 902-432-1268. And potholes are being repaired this month. New lane arrow sign was installed in Granville and Ryan intersection on lanes heading north, left, center, right turning. Rotary Park path was leveled and repaired for parking and visitors. And the following snow removal efforts were completed March 7th to the 13th, and hopefully that's done with now. There was 2 road plowing events, 5 sidewalk events, 10 road salting, 11 sidewalk salting, 10 parking lot salting events, and 3 drifting events. The COVID-19 update to operations. Operations continues with its regular duties. Staff are split up into 2 teams, A and B, and are practicing social distancing while at work with a daily cleaning and sanitizing routine at the start of the day. All essential operations are operating well to maintain safe drinking water, road maintenance, spring cleaning routines, and sewage treatment to protect residents' health. Reminder to the residents that lawn repair and right-of-way repairs will be commencing in May when the materials are ready for use and the grass seed will start to germinate. Please be patient with the timing, and all repairs should be completed by the end of May. And just one other thing, the road debris pickup. is occurring this month with the street sweeper, but apparently we had a little bit of a problem with the street sweeper, and we had taken it out of service. So we're now working with the technician. They're troubleshooting, and they hope to have that back on the road right away. So that's the update on the street sweeper.
Thank you.
There is the water and utilities. All the water samples were taken were clear of bacteria. The chlorination samples all within parameters. Basically everything is good. I'll just cut it short there. So is there any
any questions for the chair, for Councillor McDougall? I do not see anybody waving their hand, Councillor McDougall. So
thank you.
Do you have anything further you want to add at this point?
Yeah, I just want to extend my sincere condolences to all our neighbors in Nova Scotia for this senseless act, and our hearts go out to all the families over there. I was telling them earlier, the RCMP officer that was released from the hospital today just lives behind my son in Lance. As well, the COVID-19 has certainly given the world a kick in the pants, and we're so fortunate that we live on this little island. I just want to pass along my thanks to Dr. Morrison and her staff, as well as our government and our leaders. We're doing a phenomenal job, and we're the envy of this country. So just keep up the great work and stay safe. Just to end, I'd like to pass on my condolences to the families of Walter Reel and Harry Snow, two great business leaders that contributed very much to the growth of Summerside and the surrounding area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall, and that's certainly true. We'll continue on then, and if any councillors got anything they want to bring up, which we'll have time in the open session here. Councillor Campbell, how are things in the electrical? Are the windmills still turning? And you're doing well?
Yes, sir. The Summerside Sunbank project has issued and awarded the system impact study for the interconnection between the project and the electric utility. That was a resolution that was done at our last meeting, if everyone remembers. We were going to have an open house for the project. We're going to put that off until we can hold public meetings again. Line crews continue changing older pole mount transformers and older poles, with 11 of each being replaced. Mall Avenue crosswalk, Councillor Adams, was repaired and equipment replaced. So Andrews Law expansion and electrical servicing was completed. Generator 2 engine had 2 fuel injectors put in it. A large red heart, everybody will be interested in this, a large red heart will be installed on top of the smokestack for a symbol during this time of the pandemic. It is scheduled to be installed this week. That'll be similar to the Christmas tree that went over so well. Line crew split into teams, power plant operators split into teams, and electricians split into teams with an evening shift so we could be separate while we're working. Meter readers split into separate vehicles for reading meters. That's excluding the interior meters. All electric utility functions considered essential have been worked on. General operational statistics, our windmills supplied 43.2% of our electricity. Generators run for 4.6 hours. 2 electric customers energized this month, 2 electrical service upgrades, 6 customer outage events for the month, and 4 Heat for Less Now appliances had been sold for a total of 427 appliances. And that, by your worship, is my report.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell, for that, and also thank you to your electrical staff for putting that big red heart together to have on top of the electrical utility, similar to the one they had at Christmas time over there. So in these times, we certainly appreciate your electrical staff doing that. And
especially after what happened in Nova Scotia, that's kind of really fit in.
Yes, thank you very much. Any questions for the Chair of Electrical Services?
I just had one. I just wanted to say, I think I'd seen online that it was National Lineman Appreciation Day on April 18th. So just a shout out to the guys, and I don't know if we have any women working over in the lines or not, but I know there's some girls over there that work over there in the office. But anyways, a shout out to them, because, you know, none of us, especially me, and for sure Bruce, probably wouldn't want to do what they do. So anyways, just a big thank you to them, because, you know, the weather's a little bit nicer, but that doesn't make their job any easier for sure.
Thank you, Councillor Adams.
Something I just want to say, if that's just for a moment. I don't know where that my little hand is that I have to put up, but I just wanted to say thank you to Councillor Carrie Adams for suggesting that we put that heart up at this time, because, you know, it does bring hope, Carrie, and I think it will be beautiful, and I think our residents will enjoy it, and I just wanted to thank you for that idea.
No, and it was, I'm not sure who thought of it at Christmas, but I know when we came back at Christmas and we seen it, and like so many people were talking about it. And I mean, you can see it from out here where I live, on top of the smokestack in town on Harvard Street. So it's definitely something that everybody enjoyed. So we all deserve a little something.
I think that was, and we need to give credit for that to Lydia Potter, our downtown director, who thought that would be a good idea for the Christmas one. But anyway, thanks for bringing that forward. I just think it's going to be lovely. Yeah.
Greg and the gang are always up for a challenge, so that's great.
I know. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just mention too, and you probably saw this past week, with not the traffic on the streets like they used to be, and we're hoping if the weather will stay nice, that our street department, through your department, Councillor McDougall, can get the street painting line started a little earlier. But I guess the temperature has to be at a certain degree, but hopefully we can get some of that work done earlier now that there's less traffic, and that way we'll be a lot of calls we won't be getting this spring about why aren't the streets painted.
It has to be a certain temperature, but I believe they're trying to get a jump on it. So
good. Okay, it looks like there's a couple of items for the committee of the whole under the municipal act. I believe we've gotten to the end of the agenda. Before we close off, any councillors got any final comments?
Nice to see everybody.
Yes. I don't believe there's anybody requesting to speak. So is there a motion to adjourn? We go in the committee of the whole. Moved by Councillor Adams and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. All in favor?
Aye.
Country nay? Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and we're now adjourned. Thank you.
Bye.